Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. A very warm welcome to yet another session of Conversations on Consciousness. Today we have a very special guest, Swamini Paraprajnananda Saraswatiji, who is joining us all the way from Gujarat. But before we proceed, let me begin with a small prayer. Ishvaro Gururatmeti Murti Bheda Vibhagine Vyomavat Vyapta Dehaya Shri Dakshina Murtaye Namaha Sada Shiva Samarambham Shankaracharya Madhyamam Asmadacharya Paryantam Vande Guru Paramparam. Swamini Paraprajnananda Saraswatiji is an erudite Sannyasini, well versed with the knowledge of the Upanishads, Bhagavad Gita, Brahmasutra, and other Vedantic texts. She is the student of Puja Swami Viditatmananda Saraswatiji, who is the acharya of Adhyatma Vidya Mandir, Ahmedabad. And she has been teaching Vedanta for the past, I think, 20 plus years. A very warm welcome to Swaminiji. We are very happy to and glad to have you here.
Thank you.
Swaminiji, my first question would be about your early days and how, what were your initial influences on life and education, and how did your interest in Vedanta or spirituality in general start? Who were your early influencers, so to speak?
Yes, thank you, Nithinji. I come basically from a Jain family, and my parents are very, very religious. Of course, my mother is no more, but she was an extremely religious, pious, and a noble lady. My father, too, is religious and very large-hearted. I think all of us in our family have instilled this religious samskaras from my mother. And as a child and in my growing days also, I was very shy and quiet person, introvert person. And yes, always inclined towards religion and reading and all that. Then I have done my master's in English literature, and I was teaching that for some time. Then, as I said, all along I used to read religious literature, and I was very much impressed by the biographies of great saints. Of course, also was reading profusely Ramayana, Mahabharata, all that. And one character which has left an indelible mark in my mind is the character of Meera in those days. Her devotion and her, conviction in Lord Krishna, in spite of all the tribulations that she went through, but she stood, So that impressed me very much. And I continued with this reading and all that. And we had in our house the Holy Gita by Chinmaya Mission.
Ah.
I used to read that, not understanding much out of that. And there was one neighbor, a professor couple living near us. They had a very good library. So in all summer vacations, when I was doing my master's, I would go to them and ask for a good book on Upanishad. I used to read some Upanishads, Isha, Kena, Kata, just read them without understanding anything. Then they once invited me that since you are keen upon reading all this, why don't you come and attend Swami Viditatmananda's classes and talks on Vedanta? I said, I don't know what it is, but still I will join you. And that is how I began. And again, as I said, in the beginning, it was all going above my head, but subject interested me. And that is how I was hooked to the subject. And then there was no seeing back. That is how my journey with Vedanta began. And it has continued all along.
So for how many years, Swamiji, did you study with Swami Viditatmananda ji? And share us some anecdotes perhaps or some experiences while you were studying Vedanta, while you were still a student, while you were still learning the fundamentals of Vedanta philosophy.
Anecdote means you want me to narrate some experience?
Yes, definitely.
Uh-huh. See, then that couple, because of them, I came into this Vedanta, and I started studying. But with Swami Viditatmananji, I have been all along, and even now, whenever he is here in Ahmedabad, because since I am in the same ashrama, I study from him when the classes are going on, and I have been with him for about past 30 years now. I have never joined any formal course, but since I was in Ahmedabad and the ashram was close by, I studied with him. And most of the time, I used to be in ashram and studied everything in great detail. Practically, the whole Prasthana Trayi has been learnt, and a host of Prakarana Granthas are also learnt. So that is how I have been learning and teaching also along with that. Then in the beginning, then after some time, Swamiji asked me to teach in one of the suburbs in Ahmedabad. He said, you can also start teaching. I said, Swamiji, then my life will change. I said. He said, fine. So in the beginning, there was little, but then once I started doing that, I enjoyed it immensely. And that is how it has all begun. And yes, I study and I teach. Both of that is going on. My friends, etc., and they all had reservations with respect to this. But again, my conviction in this and the support I got from my prayers, etc., helped me continue with this.
Swamiji, when did you receive your sannyas diksha? I presume it is also from Swamiji itself you received the sannyasa diksha.
No, I received sannyasa diksha from Puja Swami Dayanandji. Puja Swami Dayanandji Maharaj, because Swami Dayanandji is Swami Viditatmananda's teacher, and Swamiji, Puja Swamiji, also Swami Dayanandji Maharaj also used to come to Ahmedabad many times for talks. So I used to listen to him and listen to his talks by CDs, and I used to read his books. It was tremendously, uh, inspired by him also. And in those days, Puja Swamiji used to give dikshas, sannyasa diksha. So my sannyasa diksha guru is Swami Dayanandji Maharaj.
Oh,
And
wonderful, Swamiji. So, I mean, every teacher has a unique way of teaching. I mean, I have invited so many people on this platform, and every time I ask this about their own teachers, because every teacher has a unique way of teaching. Some teach in a more mixed with humor. Some teach in a more meticulous manner, and different people have. So what has been your experience when you studied Vedanta with your teacher, and what is your way of teaching, so to speak, when you are teaching the new students? What are the some of the things that you consider as most important when you teach Vedanta to other students?
yes, my experience of learning with Swamiji has been very, very pleasant. And what I have always seen is that Swamiji is very, very meticulous and he is very thorough. Whenever he teaches, there is not much humor occurring when he teaches, but very, very studiously and meticulously he teaches. In fact, we have the experience, we are very well versed with his style of teaching, of taking text plus bhashya, then other commentaries like Anand Giriji and whatever, and plus tippanis also. That is how he teaches. Like each and every word thoroughly will be explained, and the tippanis and tikas and bhashyas and everything. So that is how we have learned. And I feel that because of that only, my exposure to the Shastra has been there. Otherwise, perhaps on my own, I would not have gone into tikas and tippanis, all that thing. But because of the way he taught, now I'm also used to reading the tippanis and everything. Of course, when I teach, I don't get much into all that because I've seen that people at large, they are more interested in the core message rather than too much of all this. Yes, with the students who are inclined to serious study, which are of course very few always. So with them, I adopt that style. But when when the mass is learning, then I try to send home the message of Gita or the Shastra, and how to implement that in practical life. That because that is what I see that is going to help them. So we have to give the message in such a way that they can bring it in their lives. That is what I try to do, because otherwise it takes very long time, and they do not see any benefit coming out of that. So as a result of studying our scriptures, Bhagavad Gita, they are pearls. So if they are studying that, it should reflect in their lives. This teaching should come in life. That has been my thrust when I teach, and that is what I follow up also, whether it is coming in their lives or not. That is what I try to see.
Wonderful, Swaminiji. That especially the how you explained about the need to study the Shastra in a meticulous manner, from the source text and the Bhashya, and then the Tika, Tippani, and Vartikas, whatever are there. I think in the tradition, we speak about Brahma Sutra, it is often said you need to study Brahma Sutra with the Bhashya of Shankara, and then the Bhamati of Vachaspati Mishra, and I think Parimala of on that Bhamati, and I
Yeah,
think there is Kalpataru on that Parimala. So
yes,
the whole thing is to be studied.
everything. Because sometimes Bhashya itself, it looks simple, but it is not that simple. So we need to have this tikas, everything, to be able to understand what Bhashyakara is saying.
True, very true. Uh,
In-depth study.
yes, Swaminiji?
That will give us in-depth study of Bhashya also.
Yes, yes, wonderful.
Because
So
Bhashya looks simple, but it is not simple that simple.
if it were that simple, then we would not
Yeah,
have further bhashyas on the bhashyas.
yeah.
Moving further, I want to ask some questions related to some notions or concepts of Vedanta, some well-known or misrepresented or unknown concepts, and take it from there. Because as the title of this session says, the conversations on consciousness, I want to move towards somewhat towards consciousness.
Mhm.
In the Vedanta Darshana, and as a whole in Hindu philosophy, so to speak, we have this framework of understanding life actions through the framework of Purusharthas, Dharma, Artha, Kama, and Moksha, wherein the Moksha is posited as the Parama Purushartha, or the highest Purushartha. Now, in the conventional understanding, it is said that moksha is something to be attained. It is not with us, but it is to be attained. It is the highest goal. But in the Vedanta, at the same time, it is also said many times, I think, by Bhagavad Shankaracharya himself, that moksha is not a state or a realm or a heaven or something to be attained. Then, so it is actually always there. So there is this leads to some kind of confusion, especially among the beginners, or those who are not really familiar, who are not studied Vedanta. So can you just clarify what is moksha and what is the understanding of moksha in Advaita Vedanta?
Yes. When we begin, moksha is something to be achieved. That is what the beginners think, and that is right also for them, because everybody starts with ignorance. Ignorance is already there, and when ignorance is there, the goal is always away from you. You are seeking happiness and peace from something that is away from you. In as much as you think that it is something outside of you. But when you learn Vedanta, then you come to know that moksha means happiness, freedom, peace, and that is already the nature of the self. It is something which is already there. It is moksha is not a state or a place or a goal which you have to reach, which you have to attain. It is already an attained thing. You are liberated here and now itself. So this becomes clear when you learn Vedanta. Only thing that one needs to do is to remove the Brahma or notion that I am bound. Bondage is just a notion. So moksha, by the same token that I have to achieve that, is also a notion. Because the self is already there and it is always there. So in that sense, some people even talk about Atma Sakshatkara as something to be gained. Atma Sakshatkara is not to be gained, it is always there. We just have to understand that. So moksha is not a state, not something to be attained after death. Or moksha is not, it doesn't mean that you go somewhere, reach somewhere, attain something. None of this. It is right here and now. More this is clear, more you are liberated now itself. So it is praptasya prapta. Moksha is already prapta. Freedom is already there. You are already free. But one who is free has to become free. Free from the notion that he is bound.
Very, very well put, Swaminiji. This leads me to a follow-up question because again, this understanding itself has kind of lead to a lot of what I would call as at least a misunderstanding or a misinterpretation. Especially today, we have a lot of modern teachers. We have terms like Neo Vedanta, Neo Advaita, and many teachers who say that contrary to the traditional methodology wherein there is first the practice of bhakti and karma anushtana to gain chitta shuddhi and sadhana chatushtaya, and then you practice mana shravana manana nidhyasana for attaining atma jnana. But contrary to this, by stating that moksha is already there, we are already there, self is already there is nothing to be done. There is a movement in the modern times, we can see in the last 50 years, 100 years. A lot of many teachers are teaching, a lot of students, especially in urban areas, in the West also, as mainly in the West, wherein they say that no sadhana is required, no karma is required, no bhakti is required. We are already free. We just live as we are. And in the sense, the whole, the whole sadhana chatushtayam, the whole shravana chatushtayam, the whole bhakti, the whole, it has been removed by saying that we are already free. Let us just say stay as it is. So it looks very similar to what you just said. Praptasya prapta. It looks similar, but it is not same. Can you can you comment on this?
Yes, very well. A very good question. See, it is praptasya prapti, yes, but one has to reach that stage, that I am the self. For one to understand this, there has to be a lot of Antakarana Shuddhi, lot of emotional maturity. So the ground has to be prepared. Only and only when that maturity is there, when the Antakarana Shuddhi is there, then one can understand that one is that self which is already full and which is not bound. It is mukti is right here with right mind nature. That one can understand this, only one can understand and own up this thing only and only when Antakarana Shuddhi is there. Unless that is there, this is just words, that I'm already mukta, but you don't feel that. You don't feel that. So by saying that we are already mukta, we are not dismissing karma yoga or bhakti or sadhana chatushtaya. No, not in any way. Yoga yukto vishuddhatma. Only when one is passed through the stage of karma yoga, then and then this jignasa arises. First of all, for the jignasa to arise, first of all, for the desire to arise that I want to know what is the self. What is purnata? To know that also purity is required. Otherwise, that orientation of mind is absolutely not there. You will always be extrovert, Where is the time to sit back and think? Where is that orientation? One cannot sit also. Nahi kaschit kshanamapi. Jatu tishtati akarma. One cannot even sit and think, let alone accept the Atma, which is already full. So, all these sadhanas are definitely required. Without that, purity is not going to come. And unless that purity, preparedness, maturity is there, that you are already full, that you are Atma, and you can abide and own up, that is never going to happen. That will never happen. So to say I'm mukta is not becoming mukta. One has to understand all this. I may say I'm liberated, but not feel it. Not feel it. People are bound. They feel incomplete. Insecurity is there. So many problems are there. Why? You are already full. You should not feel that. Yes. But these are just words which are heard, but they are not imbibed. So preparedness, there is no option to preparedness. There is absolutely no option to karma yoga or bhakti. One has to have all that for Antakarana Shuddhi.
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely wonderful, Swaminiji. Follow-up question, another follow-up question to what you just stated on the importance of Antakarana Shuddhi, Chitta Shuddhi. I remember, I think it was in Naishkarmi Siddhi, Sri Sureshwaracharya says that the performance of karma anushtana, that is the varnashrama dharma and the dharma anushtana, is the key to attain this Antakarana Shuddhi.
Yes.
But can you explain more about how this happens? How does the practice of dharma, the practice of varnashrama dharma leads to Antakarana Shuddhi, and what does it, when we say that Antakarana has to be purified, what does it mean? What are we removing? What kind of impurities are we removing?
Yes, mainly speaking, Antakarana Shuddhi means neutralizing your likes and dislikes. And our ego comes in the form of many likes and dislikes and anger and jealousy and competition and arrogance and all this. Now, as long as these problems are there inside, how are you ever going to understand that everything is Brahman? Everything is nothing but one, because you are circumscribed only to the ego. You means I'm circumscribed within this boundary only. My understanding, my perception of I is within the boundary of this body, mind, intellect. To say that I'm everything is one thing, but to feel is another. To understand this is very profound. So that can happen. Our whole vyavastha of varnashrama dharma and everything is just beautiful. Behind that, there is a very, very mature understanding of how to lead your life. In grihastha first is that when you lead that life, then you reach out. When you live together, not only husband and wife, but You are there for the whole society, for your neighbors, for your relatives, and you live a life of giving. It is not a life of just bhoga, but it is a life of yoga. You know, it is this yoga. Yoga means depleting, diminishing your ego and selfishness, and trying to understand that everything is you. Karma yoga emphasizes that more of Ishvara, less of ego. It is nothing but the final or the absolute truth that everything is practicing that in life is karma yoga. Practicing that everything is Brahman in life, while living, while working, while playing the role of wife, husband, mother, sister, daughter-in-law, while living this life, when you live with the attitude of giving, contributing, then there are going to be attacks upon your ego. Giving is not easy. When you give, your ego is going to be receiving attacks because people will not be conducive to you all the time. But your principle is, your understanding is that I have to give. For me, contribution is more important. I'm just an instrument in the hands of God. Ishvara has placed me here, and I have to play my role in the best possible way with the attitude of giving. When you live this life, then a time comes when all your likes and dislikes, strong assertive nature, demands, arrogance, always pushing yourself forward, always aggrandizing, not sharing. For you, always you come, I comes before all others. All this will get neutralized. It is this can happen only and only when we live a very, very conscious life. Very, every moment when we play our role with this understanding, Brahmani adhaya karmani, sangam tyaktva karoti yat, that each and every of my action is a puja for Ishvara, is an archana of Ishvara, and Ishvara in the form of humanity. Ishvara in the form of this Jagat which is there for me. I am his servant. I am his sevaka. And the role of the sevaka is to please the master. And whatever I get back is also fine for me. I have no complaints. So while performing action also, your ego has to go back. While receiving the result also, your ego has to be pleased. This is not easy. For that, one has to constantly work with oneself. Every time you have to educate your mind. Only when this is what I mean by Antakarana Shuddhi. Most of the work is over by doing this. And then it is, like that sponge. Sponge, when something is, when the milk is there, it is spilled, and you put the sponge there, it absorbs. It absorbs everything. Similarly, when your heart is pure like this, then when the knowledge is given that you are Brahman, you have already indirectly lived that life. So you can absorb it very easily. And then it works, like it is meeting of petrol and fire. It will immediately ignite. If I'm making myself clear.
Yes. My next question again follows from my time. I'm extremely enjoying this session. So many insightful thoughts I'm getting as I'm listening to you, Swaminiji. You mentioned about how householders in their roles as wife or husband or whatever it is, were to do over karma as a karma yoga. In this context, I want to ask you one specific question. In the Brihadaranyaka Upanishad, for example, we have this Yagyavalkya Maitreyi Samvada, wherein basically Yagyavalkya is in the role of a husband as well as a guru, and Maitreyi is who is his wife is also in the role of a shishya, the student.
Yeah.
And when Yagyavalkya expresses his desire to take sannyasam, she expresses her desire to follow him as a student. I mean, until then they were husband and wife. But once Yagyavalkya takes sannyasa, basically, if she is following, she is also taking sannyasa and following as a shishya, so to speak. So my question is, in that Upanishad, to my best knowledge, I may be wrong, that Maitreyi is not shown as doing any particular sadhana or anything, but mostly following her duties as a wife, the what is called as Pativrata Dharma or Stri Dharma in the Dharma Shastras. And in the Dharma Shastras, Manu and other Dharma Shastras, and even in Puranas, which mentions that Pativrata Dharma is a very great dharma. It brings punyam, chitta shuddhi, and a primary sadhana for women. But today's context, this Pativrata sadhana has been completely demonized, so to speak. For example, Sati Savitri was a epithet of civilization, but today any women is kind of they're used as an abuse word. Don't act like a Sati Savitri. This is kind of happening. So in this context, I want to ask you the question: what are your thoughts on Stri Dharma, that is Pativrata Dharma, and how important it is for a householder woman's life, and what is its place in the overall spiritual journey in the from the Vedantic perspective?
Yes, according to me, playing any role, whatsoever role that you have in your life, if you play it very well, then it becomes a very good ground for Antakarana Shuddhi. Talking about the role of a wife, let me tell you, Grihastha Ashrama is the best ashrama, let me tell you. It is a very beautiful ashrama for one to grow and become mature. The relationship between husband and wife is, ideally speaking, if they both understand why they are together and what are their roles, then it can become the best stepping stone for sannyasa. Whether they take sannyasa or not is a different matter. But living that life itself, understanding each other, understanding each other's needs, even in today's context also, life has changed, but yes, two people are together, adjusting to each other, understanding each other's needs, respecting them, compromising, adjusting, sacrificing. If you do all this, then whether you are wife or husband, you are bound to become pure, because living together is not easy. For living together and living in harmony, living together, you may be together, but you may not be together. Just because you are together in a house or in for you are in a home, that doesn't mean that you are mentally together. What I mean by living together, harmony. For harmony, one has to work. One has to make a conscious effort to live in harmony with other person. And it doesn't matter whether you are wife or you are husband. And wives, for them, but according to me, it is easier. It is easier because for her emotions, women are basically emotional person, and for them, love and giving comes easily. Nurturing, caring, giving comes easily. And these are actually going to help them. For a man, that may be little difficult because he is basically an egoistic person. For him, intellect is, even women are intelligent. I'm not saying that, but that heart is there. So if she understands this, that I am in a position of giving, I'm very rich, caring is my privilege. If she understands that, then tell me, who can stop her from doing that? And she can win everybody's heart. So, according to me, even today, in this context also, women are more privileged.
Thank you, Swamini for shedding a light on a very important but highly misrepresented aspect today. By misrepresentation, another misrepresentation comes to mind. That is the characterization of Advaita as Mayavada. Any comments on that, Swamini?
See, actually, when Maya, when there are many people who are hurt by this word Maya and Mayavi. When this Maya is talked about by scriptures, they think that Ishvara is Mayavi. And do you mean their feelings are hurt in accepting that Ishvara cannot be a Mayavi? He is not that type. Yes, but they fail to understand that Maya is just a model, a prakriya used by acharyas and scriptures to help us understand Advaita, to help us understand this creation. Because Brahman being what it is, Nirvikara, Nirvishesha, and Advitiya, how are we going to explain this creation? So, acharyas and Upanishad also have given us this beautiful tool called Maya. That it is Brahman Shakti, as it were, with the help of which Brahman appears as many. See, when we say that Jagat is there, we are not giving it reality. We don't say that it is real, but it is an appearance which is there because of Maya. Otherwise, there is no way, that no plausible explanation is there to explain this creation. How are you going to explain this creation? Unless and until you add this factor called Maya, how are you going to explain this creation? If we say that Brahman became this creation, then Brahman has converted itself into this creation. It became, so it has changed. Now it is no more available as Brahman because it has changed. Are you going to accept this? Is this explanation acceptable? No. So wonderfully, acharyas have introduced this concept of Maya. And Shvetashvatar also says, Mayam tu prakritim vidyat, Mayinam tu maheshwaram. But at the same time, we say that Maya is not something which is inherent to Brahman. At the same time, we cannot even say it is an independent reality, because otherwise it will become Dvaita. Then what is it? Then again we say it is Anirvachaniyam. Anirvachaniyam means we cannot categorically describe as with Brahman, away from Brahman. But the answer, or what acharyas need to understand is this, that once you understand Brahman very well, then Maya will not bother you. It is a bhushanam, not dushanam. Why are they so much obsessed with Maya? What is important is Advaita. Maya is just to help you understand the mithyatva. It is an appearance. Just as the dream world got created. It lasted only as long as you were sleeping. Once you woke up, it is no more there. Why are you worried? You are what you are. There has been no change in you. Similarly, Brahman remains changeless, and this creation has appeared. Don't bother about it, and your account is settled. I hope I'm making myself clear.
Absolutely, crystal clear, Swaminiji.
Mm.
This reminds me of one of the lectures that I had heard, wherein the different something similar, wherein the Parimanamavada was compared with milk turning into a curd, whereas Vivarta, yeah. So why that cannot be? Because if Brahman has become Jagat, then the worship of Brahman or Ishvara becomes meaningless, because Ishvara is already in
It's
Jagat.
changed.
So that is why this Vivartavada or this doctrine of appearance has been postulated by Acharya, Shankaracharya and others to explain the Jagat. So
Somebody, has said very well that it is not Shatadushani but Shatabhushani.
I think there's a work by that name, right? Shatadushani and then Shatabhushani.
There is, but I forget the name just now.
Yeah, yeah. So, Anijit, we are coming towards the end of this session, and I want to ask you one question. You have studied the Prasthanatraya in a very great depth for many years now. So, Bhagavad Pada Acharya has given many insights, beautiful insights, practical insights spread across this whole, it's very difficult to study the whole Prasthanatraya unless you're very dedicated. So, can you share some of his particular teachings that has moved you, that has inspired you, that has stayed with you all these years? From his Prasthanatraya or from his Prakarana Granthas?
Yes, to pinpoint any one thing is not that easy, because everything, the bhashya of everything, of all the texts beginning from all the Upanishads, Bhagavad Gita and Brahmasutra and everything are so wonderful, and it just engrosses one. But what touched me in the beginning, it hooked me, is Mandukya Upanishad and the Karika, plus this verse of Mundak Upanishad, Pariksha Lokan Karmachitan Brahmanah Nirvedamayat. Then there is this line, Nasti Akrutah Krutena Karmana. There is this line, Nasti Akrutah Krutena Karmana. A Brahmana, there it is, a Pariksha Lokan Karmachitan Brahmanah Nirvedamaya. When you see whatever can be gained by karma, then you come to know, after analyzing all your experiences and achievements and accomplishments and everything, then you come to know that, oh my God, there is nothing akrutah. Akrutah is akrutah. It means that which is not the result of karma is what I am seeking. What my desire is it is for something that is not limited. And everything that is there in this creation is limited. Everything is result of karma. This creation itself is result of karma. And our desire is for something which is just not limited. Then what am I doing in this world? When what I am seeking is not there and it is not to be achieved by karma, then what are we doing? Which means, then the verse says, Tad Vijnanartham Sakurumeva Abhigachet. Mundak Upanishad, wonderful verse, It says, Tad, if it is not to be found by karma, it is not a result of karma, then it throws the light. Tad Vijnanartham. To know that, go to a teacher, which means you have to know about it. It is very much there, and you have to learn about it from a teacher. So this is something which touched me. very much.
That's wonderful, Swaminiji. I think that is the essence of Vedanta, in a sense. I think Mundaka also, Mundaka only further says, right, when you have this knowledge, then you take the samidhans, go to a guru who is
Teacher.
Shrotriya and Brahmanishta, and
Brahmanishta.
yeah, wonderful. I also, apart from Ishavasya Upanishad, Mandukya Upanishad with Gaudapada Karika is also my favorite.
Mandukya. Karika. Sometimes you feel that Karika surpasses the Upanishads.
Exactly. Wonderful. Swaminiji, I have one final question. Do you have any final guidance, any advices to new seekers who are new on the path of pursuit to truth, uh, who will be listening to this recording, this session? So, any advice, anything for them?
I would say that, be good, be a good human being, do good, sincerely live a life of karma yoga, which means a life of contribution. Contributing doesn't mean in terms of wealth. That also you can give, but a human being has so many wealth. So much with him. He has time, he has talents, he has so many things with him. With all this, if he has the attitude of giving, then Ishvara will take care of everything. Jignasa will arise. Plus, I would also emphasize the need for bhakti in one's life. One's devotion for Ishvara, a relationship with Ishvara goes a long way in the life of a seeker. Then, once you enjoy that grace, Ishvara's grace is required in a seeker's life. And once that grace is there, then it becomes his responsibility. And that grace doesn't just come like that, it has to be tapped. Yame Vaishya Brunute Tena Labhya. Kathopanishad says, even Mundaka says, Yam Eva Esha Brunute. If we choose Ishvara, once you choose Ishvara, then it is said, Tasyesha Atma Vivrunute Tanum Swam. You have to choose that which is the best in life. Ishvara is your very self. Once your dedication is for that, then he will reveal himself. Atma will reveal himself. But for that, all this is required as the base. So be a good human being in life, be selfless, and earn Ishvara's grace. Then you are on the right path. And always uh, turn to our scriptures. Bhagavad Gita is a wealth. It is a jewel. Upanishads are there. Have place for them in life. Go to teachers who are well versed with this and learn. This will change your life.
Thank you very much, Swaminiji. The whole session was very insightful, very fascinating, and for me personally, it was very learningful exercise. Many of the things that you said were kind of reinforcing my own ideas, my own understanding as well. So, on the behalf of entire Advaita Academy team and as well as all our viewers, we sincerely thank you for taking time and appearing on this show.
I also enjoyed this session. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Swaminiji. Viewers, with this, we come to the conclusion of yet another session of conversations on consciousness. Please follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and we also have a Facebook discussion page called Advaita Academy Discussion Group. So join the group and engage in discussions on Vedanta. With this, we end the session. Shri Guru Bhyo Namaha.